Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, or as I also like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today I am sitting here in Studio 1 of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, and our guest is 3,000 miles away in Laurel Canyon, Valley of the Dreams, a great musician, wonderful humanitarian, teacher, educator, Mr. Gary Allegretto. Gary, thanks so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me. And it's Canyon of Dreams, actually.
Oh, Canyon of Dreams. I said that I screwed it up. Well, all right. Canyon of Dreams. It's a pretty famous place, huh?
Yes, it's very famous. If you're into music from the 60s and 70s, you can trace the people that lived here to the Doors, Eric Clapton, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash, the Eagles, John Mayall, of Blues Note. He even wrote a song called Laurel Canyon, and it's mentioned quite a bit in a lot of very, very iconic songs from the era.
Very cool. Well, I got a little video shot of it before we started, and I wish I was there rather than here. But anyway, thanks. I do appreciate your taking the time. We haven't met, but I certainly have been aware of you for some time, not just through sort of Facebook and whatever. I have your most recent CD, which is apparently just doing great and nominated for a bunch of awards and things already, right?
Yeah. I'm blessed that it's getting some recognition and a lot of airplay. It's called Blues on the Trail. And it's 7 songs nominated for Song of the Year by the AWA, and
wow,
nominated for CD of the Year by 2 different organizations, and Artist of the Year also by the AWA. So yeah, it's getting some recognition, and I'm proud of it. It's an original album, and a bit kind of a unique album as well.
Oh, I loved it. I played it a whole bunch of times. I really loved the songs. Great job
you.
with that.
Thank you very much.
So I know you play harmonica, guitar. You've been playing out a long time. You also have quite a background firefighting and magazine covers and everything else. But what do you remember when music sort of came into your life? Did you have a lot of music in your family? Did your parents play? Did you play young, or how did music kind of come into your life?
It's my first instrument. It wasn't harmonica or guitar. It was my voice. And my first exposure to music was through my mother, who has the voice of an angel still. She still in her 80s sings in choirs and as the lead soprano, and just has an amazing voice. And it's always inspired me. And as a child, I sang along with her all the time. She would harmonize with me, and we'd sing to the radio on road trips in the car, and then at home she would bring home albums and play them for me, and everything from Bob Dylan to she once brought home the Woodstock album.
Wow,
all of that, and we'd sing along to that stuff. Louis Armstrong, Stevie Wonder, all that. And she was probably my biggest influence from the start to music.
Wow, nice. And that's a young age too. You're talking, just a few.
I'm talking from birth.
Yeah.
I probably listened to my mama sing Amazing Grace when I was, before I was born.
Yeah. Wow.
I was probably listening from, her belly. And she really does have an angelic voice. It's mentioned in my song on my new album, Wherever I Roam.
Cool.
That last verse, when you listen to that album, is from my mom, and it talks about there's a voice of an angel, and I carry it with me wherever I roam. She's always there with me, singing me home, here in my heart, wherever I roam. That's the line.
Wow, that is nice. I'm gonna listen to that again. And, certainly even before we're born, we're listening to heartbeats and conversations, and your mom was
Absolutely.
singing. That probably did make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as far as a musical instrument, to answer the rest of that question, the influence came from when I was, I'm guessing around 7. It's fuzzy to remember how back that far, but I'm guessing around 7 or so. My grandfather gave me my first harmonica. Saw me, again, fuzzy memory of it, but I do remember exactly how it felt when he handed it to me, and exactly how I responded. My grandfather had been the very first musician that I ever listened to. He played harmonica and accordion, and from his side of the family, it's very musical. My uncle Lefty had a band. I saw probably my first band was my uncle Lefty's band. He played an accordion. These are Italian immigrants, so they're very, very musical fellas. Lots of strong character, and they had this band at my uncle Ernie's wedding, 3-piece, and I can tell you the songs that they played, 2 of them, and I was only 4 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, they played King of the Road, Roger Miller's song, King of the Road.
Mm-hmm.
I remember everybody sang along with I Ain't Got No Cigarettes, that line. And then they played a song called The Alley Cat. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a sort of a line dance song of those days. And I remember those 2 songs specifically because I remember how happy the audience was when they played them. And how everybody got up to dance. And there's the power of music right there. It made everybody in the room happy. And so much so that I still remember it to this day. And it's probably my earliest memory, and I was only 4. But going back to my grandpa, he had a stroke, and he could no longer use the one side of his body, and nor could he speak. And he could no longer play harmonica. And so when he saw me playing on a toy harmonica, he went painstakingly to his room. He could walk with a cane and braces, and got his harmonica out of a drawer. It was a Hohner Chromonica, which I still have. And in fact, it's right here on top of my mantelpiece. So he got his Hohner Chromonica and handed it to me. And, this is no cliche, even though it sounds like it. You might say everything changed for me. I found my whole purpose for being here right underneath my nose that day.
Wow.
And literally underneath my nose, because that sound and, him handing it to me, I knew exactly what that meant. And that was, you're going to carry on this tradition of our family playing music. Man, and I had no idea where it would take me, but I knew it was a big moment.
I'm kind of getting tears in my eyes over here.
That's
remarkable.
I've told that story a million times, and I still choke up when I tell it. But it's that powerful, and it was that powerful a moment in my life.
Wow,
and again the power of music. I didn't know at that time what it would mean, but I knew it meant a lot. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew that it was going to be, the reason I'm here.
Wow, it's really profound. So, very young when that happened, obviously. Then where did the music take you? Did you start playing other kinds of music? Did you get more harmonicas? Did you start taking lessons? When did you get into guitar, get into bands, all that?
Well, it was a slow process. Back then, we're talking, oh gosh, in the 60s, when I, maybe 68 or so, when I got the harmonica, 60, 67, 65, something like that. There was no internet, of course, and, no, not even VHS, and there's no video of how to play. I had a Tony Glover book, blues harmonica, how to play blues harp. And it had a it had like a disc in it that you could play on a record player, but it was in no way an instructional disc. When I say disc, I mean to play on a phonograph.
Right.
And it just had examples of people like Sonny Terry and Little Walter and,
right.
and Junior Wells. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but I still have it. I love the book. Don't get me wrong. It just didn't really help me play. So I had to teach myself. And, you can't really learn to play from a book anyway, So there was no instructors. So I had to teach myself. There was a guy in the neighborhood who played harmonica. He played with my best friend's brother's band. And but, he had no talent for teaching. And so I would go see him. I'd sneak into bars and stuff to see him play or go to their parties and watch him play. And then I just started a record collection, But before all that went down, I was attending a festival in D.C. with my parents, and probably just gotten the harmonica from my grandpa and was messing with it. But it was they have it on the mall every year. It's a cultural festival.
Oh, yeah.
So this particular festival, I heard music playing, and it was music that I just, it just caught my ear because it was harmonica, but it was harmonica like I never heard it. It was harmonica coming through an amplifier. And so it drew me like, Pied Piper, I could not, I couldn't tune it out, and I had to get to it where it was. And so while they were looking at something, I snuck off to see what that was. And, I'm 90% sure it was Big Walter Horton, because I remember exactly what he looked like. And then later, when I went to the record store looking for albums, I saw that image.
Wow.
And, even though I was such a young kid, I do remember that. And it had a profound influence on me because I could not tear myself away from it. They came looking for me. I mean, they had search party looking for me. Then I was the lost child, but actually not lost at all. I was found.
Yeah.
right
oh,
there.
Right.
Found by the magic of blues harmonica.
Oh my God! Well, Big Walter Horton, he was, as a kind of a harmonica geek myself. I mean, to me, him and Little Walter, and they were unbelievable. Big Walter just had such sound, tone.
I think Big Walter's still my all-time favorite. It just, what I like about Big Walter was how fat his sound was, but also how he's playing in the city, but that you could still hear the country in his sound. You could still hear where it came from, more so than Little Walter. With Big Walter, you could hear that came from the Delta, and it hadn't really left his sound. And I also just loved the whole essence of his playing and his singing and all that. It just has a real authentic feel to it, like he wasn't pretending.
Yeah,
there isn't a pretend note there at all.
No, he was hitting them all.
or the way he sings, it's 100% authentic, So I just really like that. It had a big influence on my music because though mine's, I started with the blues. I backtracked and went to where it came from, and incorporated a lot of that country, and I don't mean Nashville country. I mean country,
like country blues type,
like country blues and roots music.
Right.
Even authentic stuff from the Appalachian Mountains, and all the influences on the music, which is everybody tries to make it one thing, but it's many, many things.
So then did you go off and how did you start getting in bands, or when you were in your teenagers, or did you take lessons? Did the guitar come up about that time, or what?
Well, I had, like I say, I had to teach myself to play, and I'll just backtrack a little there because I think it's kind of an interesting story, and I think a lot of players that might listen to this probably approached it the same way if they grew up around when I did. I went to the record store. I'd ride my bicycle to the record store. It was Wonderland Records. The appropriate name, Wonderland, because it was truly a wonderland.
Right.
When I get there, and I'd say, hey, I love this song by the Allman Brothers, Trouble No More, and it says it, and I would study these albums because that's what you did back then. There was no video or anything. You get all you could see of these people, unless you caught them on the midnight special on TV. All you could see of these people was on the albums or in Rolling Stone and an article or something like that. So, and I would just absorb everything I could, but I would look at who the songs they wrote or they play on the albums were by, and Trouble No More was by McKinley Morganfield. And I had no clue who that was. So I went to a record store again on my bicycle and went in and said to the guy, hey, who's McKinley Morganfield? And the guy had no clue. And he says, why? I said, well, it's right here on the Allman Brothers Trouble No More. It's by McKinley Morganfield. He says, oh, let me look it up in the catalog. So he opens a paper catalog and finds out that it's Muddy Waters.
Right.
I said, you got any Muddy Waters? He says, yeah, over in the discount bin. All the blues records they had at that time and were just for $3 or $4, which, to me was a just so a stroke of luck because, I didn't have any money. So, I made money by, doing chores and mowing the lawn, and all that. Yeah. And, working, doing whatever I could to make a dime. So that money I spent was precious, and I spent it all on those albums. And I have early chess albums from Muddy and Junior Wells, and I think the first album I bought was with Muddy, had Muddy and Junior Wells and Little Walter on it. Blues Hit Big Town, it was called. It was actually a Junior Wells album, and I still have it. And gosh, those albums still are a huge influence on me. I learned everything that gave me the basis for being a player from playing along with those and singing along with those. And no, not only that, and I think this is interesting, visualizing. And I think visualization is a huge part of music. And I don't want to get too long-winded, but I'll strike on that too when I finally did see Muddy play. But going back to how I learned, I take these albums home and I'd put them on the record player and I'd slow them down to a slower speed so that I could figure out what the heck that harmonica player was doing, whether it be Sonny Boy or whether it be Junior or one of the Walters. And I would just, and actually also Charlie McCoy I was a big Charlie McCoy fan. He's still one of my favorite harmonica players. Anyway, listening to them and slowing it down so that I could try to figure out what they were doing, and then trying to transpose in my head what key that would be now that I slowed it down, and then go back and try to figure out what key it is in the original. That's how I taught myself. It was just like you could not have done that unless you were completely in love with the music, because it was just it's painstaking. Yeah. And it's grueling, but if it was so strong in me to want to learn it that I was willing to do whatever it took. And when I started getting some success, I can't tell you the feeling of joy I had. Oh, everybody knows that feeling when they figure something out. But I was so in love with it that it was just joyous to be able to just start playing it. Many years later, I saw. Not many years later, when I was about 18, I saw Muddy play on the Hard Again tour with Johnny Winter and at the Tower Theater, and for the Hard Again tour, which is Hard Again is one of my favorite blues albums. It just has that raw power and sound. And Bob Margolin was playing with the band. Yeah. Steady rolling Bob Margolin with Willie Big Eye Smith and Calvin Fuzz Jones and Pine Top Perkins. And I visualized sitting there. It was the best show I've ever seen of any kind of music. And I visualized me on stage with them. I'm the same way I've been visualizing it when I was listening to the albums without any reference, video reference, or all I have is pictures and liner notes. But because of that, I had a very active visualization in my head of doing this stuff. So I visualized playing with all of them, and I visualized being a blues guy and having a band and all that. Visualization, never underestimate the power of visualization. I played with 4 of those guys that were on that stage since then.
Wow.
I played with Calvin. I played with all at one time. I played with Bob Margolin, who's a friend of mine now, and I've taught with him at the Pinetop Perkins Foundation. I was the director for 5 years. I was the initial director of the harmonica there, and Bob is very much involved with the Pinetop. So we've played a lot together on stage. But Willie Big Eye Smith and Calvin and Bob and I played down in Memphis one time at the Rum Boogie. And Pinetop and I have not only played together before he passed, we worked on an album together for another artist, Rich Del Grosso.
Oh, yeah, I know Rich. Rich has played at our house. Rich and wonderful. Grant, yeah.
Yeah, Rich actually and I have done duo shows together quite a bit. Anyway, I was playing a gig and also recorded on his album with Pinetop. So never underestimate visualization. It's powerful.
That's a really good tip, because I believe in that. Just you got to follow your dreams and visualizing what you're doing. So since then you've played many gigs with I guess a lot of bands, and you've been out there for quite some time, professional musician.
Yeah, with my bands, I've had, gosh, if you I don't want to get long-winded, but the story goes on from there, of how I got up on stage first, or how I first started playing in front of people. I'll just real quick tell you that the first time I played in front of people was at parties, of course, with my friend's band, or sneaking into bars when I was young, and they'd get me up sort of as this kid who's could actually play, sort of phenomenon, and curiosity of how can this little kid know how to play blues. And back then, now there's all kinds of kids doing it, but back then there wasn't. Blues wasn't even listened to by most folks, and let alone played by a little kid. So I was definitely a curiosity, and but to me it was just that was why I was here.
Heaven.
So I ended up playing in college. When I went to college, getting together with other musicians, playing in college, getting on stages with bands, and whenever they do a blues song, getting invited up to play with professional bands, and they knew I could play. And then I played on the streets of New York City, and played in all the clubs in New York City when I moved there back in the 90s. Played in Europe and Paris and Italy. Basically learning my chops on the streets, learning how to, my chops were sort of there, but learning how to perform is a whole nother thing. So when you play in front of people on the street, you learn how to perform, because you're trying to get them to stop from doing what they're doing. You come into a club, it's easy that you already got them because they came to see you. But if they're walking past you, going somewhere, and you can get them to stop and throw money in your hat, and you're learning how to perform from that.
Cool.
Don't underestimate the power of street performing as a learning experience.
When did the guitar come along for you?
Guitar came much later. I was a singer and a harmonica player for probably 30 years before I picked up a guitar. The guitar came along because I've always liked that sound of Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, and of Blind Boy Fuller, and all the Piedmont players and all that.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, that sound is really, really powerful, and something I always wanted to possess. And I figured the only way I was going to learn to play it was to pick up a guitar and start playing it. So that's what I did. And I actually started with Mississippi John Hurt. That was the first song I learned on the guitar.
Love him.
Rich Land Woman Blues. I did break down and take a lesson, and that was what the fellow was teaching. And I can't tell you how painful it was to learn that, because, as you know, the syncopated thumb doing the bass, and then your index finger and the middle finger doing the lead, and making all that come together note for note took me just many hours and weeks and months of practice to finally figure it out. I still don't claim to be that great at it, but I can play that stuff now.
I totally love that. I mean, it's my favorite thing is finger picking style. I know what you mean. I just picked up guitar, 4 years ago. It takes a lot of effort, but
I think I got my first guitar. John Cephas helped me get a guitar. I had an old. I still have it. It's a classical guitar, but it doesn't have the sound that I was going for. So John Cephas was a good friend of mine, and
he's a great player too. Cephas and Wiggins. Oh my God, there never was anybody like him.
John is like probably my all-time favorite person in the blues, because we were friends, and I knew him, and I've been to his house, and he recorded with me, and I know what a wonderful soul he was, and also what a character he was.
True.
I can't talk about John without smiling, because we laughed all the time. When we were together, we laughed all the time. But he'd say, "Gary, you want to play? I hear you playing guitar now." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I can get you a guitar." I said, "Well, okay." And he was endorsed by Taylor, and he got me a Taylor guitar.
Ooh, yeah, sweet.
Yeah. At the time, he was endorsed by them, and oh my gosh, that just opened up all kinds of doors to me, because harmonica is a great instrument. It's my favorite instrument. It's my first love, and it will always be my favorite instrument. But it's hard to write music on it.
Yeah.
And I'd already been doing albums, and I had an album out that I just was leaning on the guitarist to help me figure out what the heck I wanted. And now I could do it myself.
Yep. I hear you totally on that one.
Yeah. So that was a huge part of my musical development, was learning to play guitar. And even though I should have started much earlier. Everything happens for a reason, and it came at a time when I was ready for it, and it changed everything. Now I do. I never imagined myself back then doing solo shows. Harmonica player. You can play. I've seen harmonica players play solo. Within their set, but they're not going to do a whole set of solo harmonica, nor would I. But with a guitar, I can play. I play 3 sets of each 45-minute sets, and by myself, and I love that.
Well. You talked a little bit about the power of music, and this is what we're really discussing. But boy, I mean, how do you describe that? I mean, what grabbed you so long ago? That gets you up there to play in front of people. 3 sets with guitar and all the work that goes in there. I mean, anything you want to talk about in terms of the power of music that you've seen in audiences and bandmates and for yourself. And we haven't even started talking about Harmonikids yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, the power of music is love. It's pure love. Love's used a lot of different ways, and often wrongfully so. But if I could describe the feeling that I have for music, it has to be love. It's more pure than any other love you could have. because it's completely unconditional. It's just, you love music. If you love music, you love music. There's no, everybody tries to put, genres on it and put, say, oh, but this and but that. And no, you love it. It's just, if you either love it or you don't. And with music, it's absolute and it's unconditional. That's the power of it. It grabs you. And, that there's an old cliche, well, I didn't choose it, it chose me. Well, that's 100% true. For me, it was, and still is. I joking around with people, you have a bad night, everybody does, and say, oh, I got to quit this stuff. And I've had friends laugh in my face, bandmates and audience members who are friends of mine, laugh in my face. And I rarely say it, but I rarely mean it when I say it, but they laugh and they say, you'll be back in what, a week? You ain't quitting this.
Yeah. Well, what you just said, Gary, is really profound, because, I've been doing these podcasts now for a while, and what you just said is so, right on and pure. But I haven't heard people talk about it as unconditional love. And that to me sounds exactly right.
Hey, nobody would stay, if music was a woman, nobody would stay with that woman if they knew what it was going to cost them, and the sacrifices they were going to have to make, and how it would be a struggle for them to make a living, and how a struggle for them to get recognition and all the work they would have, that woman would have to put them through. Or if you're a woman, a man, you just change the gender, but it is the truest form of unconditional love. You don't even question it. You just do it.
Wow.
And when you do question it, you'll be back. You know the answer to that question. It's never going to leave you.
Wow. Well, that's really, oh man, I love the way you just said that. Well, could we just go right into Harmonikids a little bit? I'd like everybody to hear about that, because I followed you some, and I'd love to hear how that started and what you do and how you see music affecting these kids. Yeah, what is Harmonikids?
Well, we've been talking about the power of music and the commitment to it and the unconditional love of music. And at some point, you want to share that more than just sharing it by playing it for people and having it be about you. You want to make it about them. Or at least in my case, that happened. And you want to share it so that they can have the joy that you had and all the benefits that you had from learning to play it. And that occurred to me at a young age. I was in New York City living in my about 26 years old. And I met a friend who was a fellow musician, who also, in fact, we did a commercial together. It was with the great tap dancer, Honey Coles. It was for a brand of whiskey. And and it was awesome. We got to meet this wonderful guy that was, a dancer in, back in the old days in Harlem at the club there, and the Cotton Club and all that. So anyway, we got to chatting about music, and he said, I'm a harmonica player. And I said, get out. I said, me too. And he says, really? He says, hey, I'm also the fellow that is the runs the playroom at Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital for children. Mm. Would you consider coming over and playing for the kids? Because I have this program where I contacted all these different music companies to donate instruments for the kids to play with. And I play piano, and they just bang along with it, on the drums. I got maracas and percussion instruments and a guitar and an amplifier and and a keyboard, and all the kids just, they sit and play, play along with me playing like a boogie on the piano. And it'd be great to have you come and play harmonica, maybe through the amp. I said, absolutely. So I showed up, and I could not believe what he had set up. This was before music therapy was a big thing, or a thing at all.
Yeah, yeah.
This was back in the mid '80s, and he had all these kids in there, and just like he said, he'd start playing, a boogie on the piano, and all these kids would be banging away. They weren't really playing songs, but they were really releasing a lot of stress and experienced a lot of joy playing along on real musical instruments. It was a lot of self-esteem from not playing on a toy. They were playing on a real instrument. So it really touched me, and I played harmonica along with them, and the kids had so much fun. And of course, they wanted they wanted to touch my harmonicas. They wanted to blow on it and all this and that. And these are sick kids with cancer and all kinds of different ailments, and I couldn't couldn't let them. You can be very careful about germs and all that. So I thought, well, what if I can get these kids harmonicas? And so at first I did by buying them for them. And then I contacted Hohner about it. And I'm a Hohner in Dorsey for like 3 decades. And they said, that's a great idea. We'll make them available at cost. So I was buying them at cost. And then I thought, well, I'm going to have, I'm limited to what I can do here unless I get donations. So I started, being a nonprofit, but not recognized by a 501c3 at first. And it kept it kind of limited to the hospital and a couple other places. But it started growing, and it grew because it was a great idea. And I started getting good at it because, it takes time to figure out how to teach harmonica to kids so that they're not just blowing in and out and making a racket. And I wanted it to be real music that they were playing, note for note. And I figured out a method that I still use today. It's the same method I taught myself with, that they can hit single notes and play real songs. And I figured out some tablature that's super, super easy for them to learn on, and songs that they'd be interested in playing. And Harmonikids was born. And then I went to provide my services to a Folk Alliance concert. In fact, the woman that started Folk Alliance said to me, I can get you a 501c3. There's a program through the Folk Alliance that's
nice
umbrella program for 501c3s. And that was very, very much appealed to me because I'm a musician and not a lot of means to pull off a 501c3. And Harmonikids became a 501c3. And Harmonikids now it's in its 30th year.
Wow, 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. That was actually more than 30 years because I started volunteering probably about 1986 or 7. So maybe around 32 years informally. So that's how Harmonikids came to be. And since then, I've been all over the world, as far away as Indonesia, North Sumatra, Banda Aceh after the tsunami, Haiti after the earthquake disaster, down in New Orleans after the Katrina disaster. But it's not limited to disasters. It's kids in detention centers and prisons. I'll be going next month to the Salt Lake City Penitentiary to teach kids there. I've been to hundreds of penitentiaries. I've been to hundreds of Ronald McDonald House, all kinds of hospitals, all kinds of different facilities for kids with everything from cerebral palsy to mental issues, learning disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. Anytime there's a kid in need, I can teach them to play harmonica and improve their life. And No doubt in my mind it does.
Wow.
I've seen miracles. You want to talk about the power of music. A couple of years ago at one of the places I go to teach, it's for severely handicapped kids. And this one kid in the group, a teenager, could not see or hear. And this is the most incredible example of the power of music, and particularly Harmonikids. This kid was there with a prompter. Of course, everything he does in life is with a prompter because he cannot see or hear. So he was absorbing what was going on by vibration, and got very excited when I played my train song, which is how I start all my sessions, by kind of wowing the kids with my harmonica skills. And got very excited by the vibrations involved with that, and they thought he was just going to be sitting there through the whole thing, but he wanted to do it. And with the help of his prompters, and by him feeling the vibration of each notes, actually started to play songs on harmonica. Yeah. It blew me away. They told me, "Oh my gosh, he's over here playing these songs," and everybody was just completely amazed. Those kind of stories, that's probably the most amazing one, but I get stories like that all the time with kids. I learned to never underestimate a child and the power of music, because you're wrong you're wrong all the time about what they can do. If they have a will, I had a kid who was blind and had cerebral palsy in Australia one time when I was teaching there. And I told the person in charge, I said, I'm nervous about him because he can't. I teach with hand-eye coordination, and he has neither. And she said, "Whatever you do, he's going to love." And that child already had a harmonica when I arrived. He was blowing in and out on it. He was so excited about me being there. She said, "He's been waiting all day for you." But nobody ever showed him how to play single note to try to make a song. All he did was blow in and out. And with just that suggestion, he picked up on it. And even though he couldn't hear or have the coordination with to find the notes, he pulled it off by muscle memory, or by playing by ear, because he just found that out of his passion to learn. So never underestimate a person's passion to do something. It takes me back to trying to figure out Little Walter on a slowed down turntable. That seems kind of possible too. But we pull off what we're excited about, what we're passionate about.
Wow, it's just amazing, Gary, because I knew some about Harmonikids, and I actually have contributed too, because
Yes, you have, and thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I've tried to teach some adults harmonica, a song from time to time. It's not easy. I'm so interested in how you do that, but to hear that you've taught, you've exposed kids to music. I mean, thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of kids around the world is just really amazing and inspiring. I tell you, it's just fabulous.
I don't know the exact number, Jeff. I think it could be approaching 100,000 by now. Because I teach thousands every year, and we're going into 30 years now, or past 30 years. So it's a big number, and it makes me feel good. It gives you great purpose in your life to think that with that kind of outreach, you must have changed a few lives, and maybe more than a few. So it feels good.
Yeah, that really sounds great. I feel like we could talk for another couple of hours about music and firefighting and everything else, but I don't know what else to say. So I really just want to thank you so much for taking the time. What you said about music to me is very profound, and what you're doing with Harmonikids is inspiring. And maybe we'll reach a few people with the podcast and get some more supporters, and whatever we can do, let us know.
people are always asking me, how can I help? And I really appreciate that. Everybody, when they see, that what Harmonikids is doing, it's just such a simple idea, but it just makes good sense. And I love to get help, but unfortunately, I don't have, the funding to hire staff or, and I don't. It's also, there's legal problems about somebody just going out and doing it on their own, under my Harmonikids roof. So donations are very much accepted, and really how I keep it going. Honer is very, very generous to me by the harmonicas, donating harmonicas for me and stuff like that. But there's all kinds of expenses, and if people are interested in donating, you can go to the website at harmonikids.org, and there's a PayPal feature in there, and no amount is too small, and we're happy to get donations, and it keeps it going. And at some point, I would like to, expand it so that I can train people to do what I'm doing. I'm just not there yet, and I'm very careful about what happens with the name Harmonikids. So, and what kind of services are offered and how they're offered and all that. It has to meet the standards of what I've developed. So.
Yeah. I've told you I'm a nonprofit organization lawyer, so maybe can help you out a little bit. No charge there,
Actually, that's very good. Thank you. You're already generous through donations. I appreciate that. But yeah, if I ever need something like that, I appreciate that, Jeff. And those of you out there who have nonprofits, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, right. And if folks, honestly, people always ask me, well, I want to do something. Well, everybody has a gift to give, and I wouldn't have thought in a million years that I would have taught, upwards of 100,000 kids around the world to play harmonica, when I was trying to figure out how to play it myself, and even after. But everybody has a special reason for being here, and if you can share that with the world, it might be financing stuff. It might be starting what you did, a organization that inspires musicians and talks about the power of music through podcasts. It may, everybody has their way of making this world a better place, and it doesn't have to be music. And I tell the kids this all the time. I say, find your reason for being here, and it doesn't have to be this, and it doesn't have to be anything that you can't imagine. Maybe you won't find it for, years and years, but keep searching for it. And I said, you never know how small it might be. It might be even as big as a harmonica, because if I ever imagined that I might be able to make a difference in this world using a little harmonica, if somebody had told me that, I would have probably stood and looked at them sideways and said, well, how's that going to happen? You just never know. Yeah, just, the main thing is, to do it. Just get out there and do it and see what happens.
Well, fantastic words of advice, Gary Allegretto. Thanks very much for taking the time, and really enjoyed the conversation. Very inspiring, and we'll be in touch.
Me too. Thanks a lot. I hope I didn't go on and extend my welcome, but thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you about this stuff. I love talking about it.
Okay. Thanks very much, Gary. Appreciate it.
Okay, Jeff. Take care.
Yep. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.